Hello everyone and welcome back to Dynamic Touch. So it looks like South Korea's natural hair movement is gaining more momentum. How so? Well, take a look at a video that was recently recommended to me. In this video, a young lady by the name of Park Chae-soo was featured on a very popular Korean hair YouTuber's channel. In this video, Chae-soo talks a little bit about her hair journey and showcased her hair as well.
교수입니다.
안녕하세요, 박재수입니다.
머리가 그 자연 곱슬이신 거죠?
네, 자연 곱슬. 네.
아니, 곱슬이 되게 펌 중에 트위스트 펌 있잖아요. 딱 그거 했을 때 그 머리거든요. 펌하는 것처럼. 지금 머리에 뭐 바른 거예요?
네, 오늘 아침에 촬영을 한다고 엄청 예쁘게 열심히 했는데 하필 오늘이 비 오는 날이어서 좀 아쉬운데 나름 괜찮아요.
원래 평소에 비가 안 왔을 때는 좀 다른 느낌이에요.
좀 더 부스스해지는 막 그런 게 있는 것 같아요.
곱슬이신 분들 다들 공감하실 텐데 장마철에 항상 매직가루 오시더라고요.
네, 저도 매직을 진짜 오래 했거든요. 한 16년 정도 엄청 오랫동안 했는데 매직이 자라는 머리마다 이렇게 뿌리 매직을 계속 해주잖아요.
맞아요.
네, 그게 너무 힘들어서 반삭을 하고
환상을 했었어요?
네, 반삭하고 머리 길렀었어요.
아, 진짜로?
네네. 2, 3년 정도 머리 기르고 이렇게 자라났어요.
저 망원머리들 했을 때도 머리 반삭하셨던 분이 나오셨었거든요.
아, 저 봤어요.
아, 보였어요?
엄청 멋있는 흑이랍니다. 완전 삭발하고.
지금 지났을 때
네.
그분도 곱슬이 이렇게 있었는데
네, 그분은 좀 곱슬 타입이 저랑
네,
다르시더라고요.
좀 다른 것 같아요.
Next, she taught the hairstylist about the curly girl method and how she defines her curls.
될까요?
네. 네, 땡겨보세요. 네, 너무. 네, 맞아요. 여기까지요.
아니, 여기까지 펴지네. 나봐도 될까요?
네네, 나도 돼요.
어.
제가 마술을 보여드리도록 하겠습니다. 이렇게 컬이 원래 좀 뭉쳐져 있잖아요. 근데 이거를 빗으면 컬이 풀리면서
오.
살짝 푸들처럼 이렇게 돼요. 야.
우와. 한 번만 더 해보면 안 돼요?
네, 다 해볼까요? 이렇게 빗으면 이렇게 되니까.
집에서 이러고 논 적이 있다 없다?
항상 이러고.
나라면은 할 거 같아요. 샤워하다가
네.
머리카락 샤프로 이렇게 장난치잖아요.
아, 맞아요.
그런 느낌으로 이렇게 해서 막 실핀으로 막 이렇게 나와.
그런 건 아니에요.
아니, 나오면은 이렇게 해서
귀엽.
이렇게 막 장난쳐서 볼 것 같아.
미키마우스처럼.
여기다 이제.
느낌 좋죠.
네. 혹시 실례가 될까요?
아니요.
괜찮아요? 아,
네.
재밌어요. 너무 이상하네요.
네. 이런 곱슬머리는 잘 못 보셨죠?
네. 그리고 사실 저는 거의 곱슬분들이 오면 거의 필요한 목적으로 저한테 오시는 분들 많으니까.
관리하는 방법을 모르시니까.
맞아. 어떻게 이 방법을 알게 됐어요? 처음에는 그냥 매직만 계속 했잖아요.
살다 보니까 해외 분들 중에도 곱슬머리 분들이 되게 많으시잖아요. 근데 그런 분들을 보면 되게 탱글탱글하단 말이에요. 컬이. 나도 저렇게 될 수도 있지 않을까? 검색을 해봤어요. 아니나 다를까 있더라고요. 관리법.
그래서 그거 보고
CGM이라고 컬리걸 메소드라는 컬리 걸들이 하는 방법? 막 이런 게 있어요. 수분을 주지 않으면 이렇게 부스스하지만 제품을 바르고 관리를 해주면 컬이 상태가 나오게 됩니다. 근데 전체 다 이렇게 빗으면 앞으로 펌한 것처럼.
아, 진짜 그렇게 될 것 같아요.
아, 제 머리 뒤에 숨으세요.
보여요.
아,
칫솔링처럼 보여요.
이제 이 상태에서 물을 뿌려줘야 돼요. 물을 엄청 뿌려줘요.
진짜 흠뻑 잡히는구나.
네.
그럼 이거는 그냥 진짜 머리 감고 딱 나왔을 때 하나 편하게.
맞아요. 항상 머리 감고 완전 젖은 상태에서 해주면 물이 금방 마르거든요.
네.
곱슬머리가 좀 금방 마르는 편이라서 후다닥 마르기 전에 이 털크림을 갖거든요.
이거 한국 게 아니구나.
네, 해외 거예요. 인스타그램을 통해서 알게 된 분이 이 제품을 한번 사용해봐라. 너무 좋아서 1리터짜리를
이게 한국에서 파는 거예요? 아니면은?
아예 안 팔아요.
안 팔아요.
해외 쪽에는 곱슬머리 관리하는 제품들이 되게 많거든요. 손에 이렇게 해주고 적셔진 부분에다가 발라줘요.
그냥 막 바르면 되네요.
네, 그냥 막 바르고 이 웹브러쉬라고.
저도 있어요. 뭐.
완전 똑같아.
똑같아요.
네.
제 색깔이 더 예쁘네요.
그럼 그걸로 할까요?
이걸로 해볼래요?
엉킨 부분을 좀 풀어주는 느낌으로 끝부분부터 이렇게 빗어주면은 빗어서 이제 위쪽으로 이렇게 올라가면 어느 정도 제품이 다 이제 발린 거거든요. 그래서 이 상태에서 손가락을 이용한 핑거 코일링이라는 방법을 통해서 머리를 스타일링 해줍니다.
아, 이거 제품만 말고 있는 게 아니구나. 저는 이런 거 진짜 저 처음 봐요.
자기가 원하는 컬의 굵기 정도를 이제 잡아서 이렇게 꼬아주면 이런 식으로 컬이 생기거든요. 이렇게.
아, 이걸 이렇게 잡는 거구나, 하나씩.
네.
그럼 이걸 두껍게 하고 싶으면 좀 많이 잡으면 되고,
그쵸.
얇게 하고 싶으면 조금씩 잡으면 되고.
핑거 코일링 말고도 되게 다양한 방법이 있거든요. 근데 저처럼 촘촘한 곱슬머리를 가지신 분들은 핑거 코일링을 해주시는 게 이제 자기 만족, 자기가 원하는 그 컬대로 이제 나오니까. 근데 이 제품은 스며드니까 크게 걱정을 하지 않으셔도 되고, 그래서 이런 식으로 해주고
이렇게 하고 이제 자연 건조.
자연 건조 해주는데 만약에 좀 더 고정력이 있었으면 좋겠다 하시면 젤이거든요. 해외에서 직구를 한 건데
아, 이게 일반 젤이랑 또 달라요?
그럼 비슷한 것 같은데 그냥 한 번 직구할 때 좀 네네네 그냥 적당량만 발라주신 다음에 똑같죠? 이렇게 해서 저는 이렇게 쓸어줘요, 머리.
아,
네.
이러면 핑거 코일링은 안 풀려요?
안 풀려요. 네, 그냥 이 상태로 있어요. 네.
머리가 똑같네 아까랑.
그쵸?
Chesu also has a YouTube channel that has well documented her curly hair journey since her big chop. On her channel, she discusses natural hair topics that are barely ever discussed in South Korea. Now, I know by this moment of time in the video, some of y'all might be very confused. What is the natural hair movement? What is a hair journey? What is the curly girl method? And what is a big chop? Well, in order to answer those questions, we need to start this story from the beginning. The natural hair movement began in the mid-1950s during the civil rights movement. Before this time, many African American people felt compelled to chemically straighten their hair for jobs, opportunities, and advancements in life. This all changed for some during the natural hair movement. Some African Americans began to boldly wear their hair textures and patterns that they were born with.
After slavery, chemical hair straightening products for Black people gained popularity. It was seen as one of the few avenues that could provide financial empowerment to Black women at a time when those opportunities were practically non-existent. It was seen as a way to elevate their status, so they were marketed with an emphasis on beauty, personal success, and the uplift of the entire race. It led people to believe that their Black hair wasn't beautiful the way it was. But a century after the abolition of slavery, Black hair and the Afro reigned supreme again. The Civil Rights Movement and the Black Power movement became a motivating force that disrupted European beauty standards. Some Black American men and women began to move away from the relaxers and embrace the natural coils and curls that grew from their heads.
Don't be ashamed of your heritage. Don't be ashamed of your color. Don't be ashamed of your hair. I am Black and beautiful and not ashamed to say it.
And although some African Americans decided to wear their hair natural, others kept straightening their hair. At this time, natural hair was tied to freedom, protest, and what some other Americans would consider as rebellion. That is, until one woman broke down boundaries and changed all of that. In the 1960s, the highly acclaimed American actress Cicely Tyson changed the views of natural hair by glamorizing natural hair. The modern natural hair movement can be accredited to how she showcased natural hair in a beautiful way. In an interview with the Oprah Winfrey Network, she explained how it happened. Other African American women of this time also helped to glamorize natural hair textures and patterns. Eartha Kitt made headlines when she chose to wear a natural hairstyle in the popular 1966 Batman film.
Oh, perfect Catwoman. Oh, and speaking of evil crime sprees,
Shall I catalog it for you, Joker?
categorically Catwoman.
Then cast your eyes on this.
A poem?
Yes. Handwritten over 200 years ago during the French and Indian War. We're going to find that gunpowder and blow a hole in the Federal Depository building you can drive a truck through. Then drive a truck through and loot the place.
Natural hair absolutely dominated Black American entertainment in the 70s. And in the 80s, the natural hair movement began to shift towards looser curls. I believe many African Americans wanted to stay true to the curly look, but wanted something that was more defined. That's where the Jerry curl comes in.
In the 1980s, Black folks did a lot of things people thought would never happen. In 1982, Michael Jackson released his album titled Thriller, and the world literally stopped. Michael Jackson's Thriller album is still one of the best-selling albums of all time, and we're now in 2019. So this moment in history is so monumental, but it's the album cover that I want to focus on for this part of the video. So on the album cover for Thriller, you can see Michael Jackson donning his curly cues. This hairstyle was probably one of the most popular styles to come out of the 80s. My mama had it, yo mama had it, and it's called the Jerry curl. The Jerry curl was invented by Jerry Redding, and the Jerry curl gave your hair a loosely curled, high shine look. That bad boy was so shiny, it was like grease. It would get everywhere on your pillows, on your sheets, on your couch. It was a very glossy finish. It required a two-part application to achieve its look, consisting of a softener to loosen the hair, and also a solution to set the curls. Although this style was made widely popular by the cover of Michael Jackson's Thriller album, the first Black artist to rock this style is actually credited to Edmund Silvers. He rocked his Jerry curl on the cover of his 1980 album called Have You Heard? A lot of people rock this new hairstyle, many artists. The hairstyle can be seen in movies. It was one of the most popular trends of the 80s. But the 80s also birthed the rise of braids and cornrows. Black people have been wearing braids for years, so this style definitely wasn't new, but it was widely popular by the time the 1980s hit. In fact, in 1981, Renee Rogers lost her job at American Airlines for wearing cornrows. She would later sue in what would be known as the Rogers versus American Airlines. Unfortunately, a New York court tossed out the lawsuit and stated that women wearing cornrows was not based on race. The court also stated that American Airlines was not discriminating against her because she's a Black woman with braids, but because Rogers didn't start wearing her hair braided until after Bo Derek popularized, quotation marks, cornrows in the 1979 film 10. The Bo Derek cornrow situation can be a whole video in itself, so I won't even go there. But we obviously know Bo Derek didn't popularize anything. In fact, she stole the style from many Black women that came before her that was rocking cornrows. But like I said, that's a whole nother video. The 1980s also brought us big hair. When I think of the 1980s, I think of big hair and colorful makeup. Thanks to Salt and Pepper, the 80s was also filled with short styles. Those shortcuts are actually really cute. I would rock it today, I can't lie. The most iconic image to me of big hair in the 80s was definitely Whitney Houston's video for I Wanna Dance With Somebody, which was released in 1987. That look was iconic and it's classic 80s. The 80s is one of the most iconic decades because of the fashion and the hair. So many Black women wore their hair very proudly in the 60s and the 70s. And I feel like when we came around to the 80s, we got more into protective styling with the braids and the cornrows. And then we went more into like the big, voluminous, crazy, wild hair. It was literally iconic. It's actually one of my favorite decades to look back at pictures of and stuff because I just feel like they were having the best time.
The 90s was a melting pot of hairstyles. Since introduced way back in the 50s, the popularity of braids as a way to wear natural hair just kept growing over the decades. In the 90s, popular artists like Brandy made hundreds and thousands of Black women all across the world flock towards braids. At this time, some African American women also wore their hair straight. Some even continue to use chemical straighteners like relaxers. Also at this time, weaves, wigs, and hairpieces were very popular, but not among the everyday African American woman. Mostly celebrity women or wealthy women, both Black and white, wore them, and they would often keep them natural looking so that the hair extensions could pass as their own hair. The natural hair movement was alive and well, although now Black women in America had tons of styling choices to choose from. In the 1990s, a hairstylist by the name of Andre Walker, also known at that time as Oprah Winfrey's hairstylist, decided to come up with a hair charting system to help women easily find the best hair products for their hair type. This typing system was only intended to be used within Andre Walker's hair product company. Little did he know that years later, during the start of the internet age, his personal hair typing system would spread online and become adopted by hundreds and thousands of people from all over the world.
Why did you decide to start this hair typing system?
Well, I started it when I wrote my book called Andre Talks Hair back in 1997. And at the time, there really weren't any ways to identify hair types, and other than by race or culture. As an example, when I worked in the salon, people would call in to make an appointment, and the receptionist might say, "What type of hair do you have?" And the person might say, "I'm African American," or the person might say, "I'm Caucasian." And so based on that, it's pretty much how we categorized hair. But as you know, within the African American race and the Caucasian race and Asian race, all the races, there are so many different hair types that we all share. In my family alone, there's type 2, 3, and 4 hair types. So as you know, you cannot categorize hair based upon race and culture or where you're from. So I thought the best way to do it was to divide the different textures into 4 different categories. 4 being kinky, 3 being curly, 2 being wavy, and 1 being straight. And within each of those categories, there are subcategories. Say, for instance, if you're a type 4, you might have a coily texture, or you might have a zigzaggy texture, one that might be a little tighter than the other. So hence this 4A or 4B. The same within the curly hair texture, number 3. You might be a 3A with a very loose curl, or a 3B with a medium curl, or a 3C with a very tight curl. So that's why I created it, so that I could devote a chapter in my book to each of the hair types. But unbeknownst to me, on the internet, people related to it so well that it got a life of its own and became the Andre Walker hair typing system. So that's how it all started. But now I use it to help people choose how to take care of their hair and choose what products they need to use.
By the late 90s and early 2000s, the natural hair movement began to have an online presence. Black women in the United States began to share more ideas and techniques about natural hair online. More and more Black women wanted to wear their hair in its natural state. Women began to share their big chop and natural hair journeys on online forums, and then later on sites like MySpace and YouTube. So what is the big chop? The big chop is the act of cutting off relaxed and chemically processed hair or damaged hair in order to grow out your true natural hair texture and hair pattern. What is a natural hair journey? A natural hair journey is the time and effort a person puts into figuring out how to wear their natural texture and pattern so that their hair can grow and flourish. In the early 2000s, the curly girl method was introduced to the world by a woman named Lorraine Massey. As the 2000s continued, the curly girl method grew in popularity among women who were not Black.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Massey. This is Devacurl Salon in Soho. We have 4 locations, and it's all for you. It's all for the curly girl, and it's all for whoever wants to be natural, actually, not just curly hair, but for all hair types. Curly hair is a lifestyle. Like, this is it, till death do we part. This is me. This is you. Anybody that has got a keratin straightener or a straightening in their hair, she's just a curly girl waiting to happen. So when you're ready and your hair's, oh, excuse me, you dropped your hair. Deepa, we're here for you. So frizz is why a lot of women hate their curls, and really the frizz is just a curl waiting to happen, and frizz is just a curl begging for moisture. As soon as you moisturize it and you keep it hydrated, stop shampooing it, stop using silicones, I promise you, everybody has the potential of beautiful hair, whether you're dead naturally straight or kinky curly. Everyone can have beautiful hair. Everyone, if you have it. We would look at you, as an individual, not as a one-fits-all, which is what's been going on. So we'll take your hair type, we'll look at it, we'll study it, we'll cut it, we'll discuss it, because the hair is very visual. I can see you, you can see me. So you can see this curl, you can see where it lives. So it's a very visual thing, your hair. You can't hide it. We cut all of our clients dry because we wear a hair dry, and because when your hair's wet, it contracts, it expands. When it dries, it contracts, and that's why a lot of curly girls hate their hair too. Cut my hair wet, it dries. It could dry up to my chin, and I will have to kill you. But at the same time, this makes sense to a lot of curly girls. They see their shape happening as we're cutting it. As you can see, she's got so many different curl variations on her head, so many different formations that are so different and unique. Look how short that one appears. If we cut that wet, that would appear the same length, and then when it dries, it contracts. But every head on our hair is where it's supposed to be, and we cut it in its position, and you can't really go wrong. It dries in its position. You save a lot of money being natural. Curls are green as well, so you don't need as many haircuts if you're not using detergents, blow frying it, straightening it. Your hair just grows beautifully, and you just come in for maintenance trims, or if you want something really different.
So what is the curly girl method? The curly girl method is a set of rules to follow, such as process, ingredients, and techniques that will enhance your curls over time and improve the health of your hair. This method was marketed towards women of all different races, all different waves, and curl patterns as well. Some of the rules were: avoid hair products with sulfates, non-water soluble silicones, drying alcohols, brushes, heat styling, regular towels, hair dyeing, etc. By this time, many Black women invested in natural hair care had known for years the majority of the information provided in the Curly Girl Method book. Most of the information had been passed down since the rise of the natural hair movement within Black American communities. Due to this fact, many Black women did not take part in the Curly Girl Method, but continued to build communities across many online platforms. This allowed women who were newly natural to have access to free resources, and they quickly began to build strong communities. Whether rich or poor, all women were welcomed. On the other hand, the Curly Girl Method went with a different method to sharing curly hair information. As I stated before, the Curly Girl Method book was launched in the early 2000s and quickly became a bestseller. Lorraine Massey also owned a company by the name of Devacurl that provided women with hair care products that met the standards of the curly girl method. She went all around the world teaching professional classes and creating certifications for the curly girl method and also probably the Devacurl brand. Many of the hairstylists certified by the curly girl method or Devacurl used Devacurl hair products and sold it to their customers as well. This allowed the Devacurl brand to skyrocket, and it quickly became a cult favorite among non-black, wavy, and curly-haired women. While the curly girl method was becoming standard for non-black women with curly and wavy hair, the online natural hair movement was exploding within black women's spaces. As time went on, women from all around the world of African descent began to become interested in the natural hair movement. From Africa to Europe to the Americas, many black women all wanted to wear their curly hair freely. Afro-Latinas and women who are half black or mixed race began to join the natural hair movement as well.
Well, I never actually knew I had curly hair.
I was inspired to go completely curly when I realized the amount of heat damage I was doing to my hair. And I saw so many beautiful curly hair girls and I was like, why is my hair not like that?
Pelo malo in my family was just not having straight hair or not having wavy hair. It's whatever you can't handle is bad hair.
When I was around my grandmother from my father's side, she would always be like, we need to do something about that hair. She would even tell me I should get with someone who has good hair just so the next generation can have good hair and we won't mess up the generation with this type of hair.
I dyed my hair blonde, bleached it twice the same day. And when I was washing my hair out, my hair was kind of like stringy and it was just ripping. It was just like elastic, just like whoosh. That's when I was like, oh my God, what did I do to my hair? And I just really hated what I was looking at. And after that point in my life is when I really started embracing and taking care of it and doing a lot of research. And that is when YouTube started becoming a lot bigger, and I was on YouTube a lot trying to figure out, oh my God, heat damage.
I started following a bunch of bloggers on YouTube and Instagram and seeing their journey, and I was like, oh my God, I could do that. It was really crazy. My hair did this whole like 180.
I started to embrace that Afro-Latina side of me 4 years ago when I went into the whole natural hair journey. Afro-Latina is just about embracing your roots, where you come from. It has nothing to do with your color. It's your blood. We all have African blood in us, you know, that's who we are.
So the confusions I had with the term Afro-Latina, and the reason why I didn't think that it applied to me was one, because I'm really light-skinned, and I assumed that being Afro-Latina is, you know, you have that very strong African descent.
Me, I never really accepted it until, you know, recently, where I started embracing my natural hair and this and that, and I started learning about it. And I think once you learn about your culture, your roots, where you came from, where your family came from, and when you speak about it with your family and peers, you really learn a lot about yourself.
I just thought it had to be a really big part of you. I thought that I couldn't be Afro-Latina. But growing up, I always knew that we came from Africa. Like, everything just ties in together. You know, when you're Caribbean, this is what you are. Your makeup is just that.
Between the years of 2013 to 2019, more women of European descent in the United States began to find interest in the natural hair movement. In the United States, straight hair has been the beauty standard for almost all women of all different demographics, races, and backgrounds for a very long time. Women felt compelled to manage their unruly, frizzy hair, but with the natural hair movement, that changed everything. Some women of European descent in the United States began to wonder what their true texture and pattern looked like without heat. This caused many of these women to find out that they indeed have a curl pattern and a different texture. Deciding to embrace their newfound curl or wave patterns, many of these women began to follow Black creators on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and other social media platforms because they found that Black creators online were sharing information about curly and wavy hair that also applied to them as well. More importantly, this information was a free resource without a heavy price tag. These women in turn began to share their newfound knowledge in their homes and communities. On the other side of things, women of European descent in the United States were also sharing their experiences with the curly girl method. They also began to share products and techniques because the curly girl method only provided the most basic of information. Some of these women found issues with the curly girl method and decided to create their own method for curly and wavy hair care. Whatever they decided to do, the natural hair movement and movements inspired by the natural hair movement was growing and expanding internationally. Now, within the last couple of years, women of Asian descent or Asian background have begun to rock their curly tresses. It started with the same questions. Do I have curly or wavy hair naturally? Do I need to chemically straighten my hair to fit in? What does my natural hair look like? These questions led them down the rabbit hole and into the world of curly and wavy hair care. At first, they were few in number. When Park Chae-soo decided to big chop and go natural a few years ago, it was probably almost unheard of. But thanks to the internet and the rise in public interest, the word is quickly spreading. There was also another young woman featured on a SBS show in South Korea. While on the show, she talked about her experience and struggle growing up with curly hair in South Korea. They did a DNA test, only to find out that her family's lineage is tied to Ethiopia by DNA. It turns out that Asians having African ancestry might not be as uncommon as showcased in this video. According to a curly wavy hair enthusiast by the Instagram name of Love My Asian Curls, up to 1 million enslaved Africans were sent to Indonesia over the course of 200 years between the 1600s and the 1800s. Her Instagram post also showcased a historical post that read, "The Portuguese in the 15th century started exporting slaves from West Africa to Europe and the Americas across the Atlantic Ocean. Other European powers, the Danes, Dutch, English, French, German, and the Swedes, soon joined in the trade, which spanned 2 centuries. Elmina was the trade post for the Portuguese between 1482 and 1637, and the Dutch between the years of 1637 and 1872. Slaves were exported from Elmina in horrifying conditions to agricultural plantations and mines in the Americas and the Caribbean. Besides trade, African soldiers were recruited during the Dutch period and sent from Elmina to other Dutch colonies such as Java in Indonesia as part of the Dutch army." She proceeds to state in her post, "Unknown to many, Dutch colonists were active during the 1600s to 1800s in bringing in slaves to Indonesia. This reminds me of all the coily Koreans, Panays, and Singaporeans we know and see on our #CurlyAsian feed. I wonder if their curls come from Africa too. Probably. At this point in my curly hair journey, I think it is crazy to believe that most Asians have straight hair. I am beginning to believe the majority of Asians have some kind of textured hair. We can all agree Asians have been conditioned to hide their hair texture because of questionable beauty standards that have been passed down. I'm a K-pop fan too, but come on, the majority of Asians don't look like that. As always, do your own research." Yes, I 100% agree that everyone should do their own research, But I thought I would include this piece because I thought it would spark others to find interest in this topic and begin to research it themselves. So definitely tell me what you think or what you find below. And although slavery wouldn't necessarily explain the root reason behind some Koreans having Ethiopian heritage and curly hair, I do know that Ethiopians did take part in the 1950s Korean War to help defend South Korea. According to the Ethiopia Observer, Ethiopia is one of 21 United Nations member countries to have responded to the National Security Council's call for military assistance in response to North Korea's invasion of South Korea. The decision by the reigning emperor was motivated by the desire to defend international justice, world peace, and humanity, says the minister counselor at the Ethiopian embassy in Seoul. Also, please keep in mind that there are also Asians without African ancestry that have curly and wavy hair naturally as well. Here is a person who is Korean with big, beautiful curls. A Korean American by the Instagram tag Living Life with Lins uses her platform to showcase her beautiful curls. South Korea is not the only Asian nation that is beginning to showcase naturally curly hair. Asian women from other countries are beginning their own natural hair movements.
It is never too late to start this journey. I've started around 2 or 3 years ago, and before that my hair is completely a mess. I didn't know what to do.
Hello my beautiful wavy curly people, I'm Burte and I'm Asian girl with naturally wavy hair. If you're first time on my channel, welcome, and if you've already subscribed me for a very long time, thank you so much for being with me. I feel all your support and love. Today in this video I want to talk about transitioning period. This healing process from burnt, straightened to death, colored, unbrushed, brushed and unconditioned hair to very healthy, shiny, thick, textured hair. I said unconditioned because I've never used conditioner in my life before I've learned about curly girl method. I'm gonna give you a little bit heads up about my hair. If you're first time in my channel, I was born with straight black thick hair like most of Asians do, and when my puberty hit, my hair started being very frizzy, very puffy, and I didn't know what to do with my hair. And because I grew up in the Asian household, my parents didn't really talk too much with the kids. That's why I don't know if I even asked my parents what to do with my hair, and I'm sure they didn't know what to do. Every time I would go to the hair salon, the hairstylist or hairdresser, they would just recommend me to straighten my hair, and they would always say something like, we can make your hair look beautiful with straightening perm, and which means like my hair, my natural hair looked ugly for them. And I had this idea that my hair is ugly and I'm not normal because I don't have this straight hair like other Asians do. And I was straightening my hair for 15 years, like from my puberty till 2018, when I learned English and I started watching YouTube more and I started learning about curly girl method, and I heard all these stories about curly girls, and I thought, oh, maybe I have curly hair or wavy hair and it's not just ugly, frizzy and puffy. And I start following the curly girl method. After 2 years, now I finally can say that I get to the point in my life where I accepted my hair the way it is, and I love myself and I see beauty in my hair and I embrace it like for 100%.
And this is exactly what the natural hair movement has always been about. I am so happy to see other women becoming inspired by the natural hair movement and not feeling compelled or forced into a beauty standard that they never wanted to mold to in the first place. I believe in the next couple of years, thousands of Asian women will begin to go on natural hair journeys of their own, and curly or wavy hair among Asian women will become mainstream. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell. We currently have a giveaway going on, so make sure that you enter in the giveaway if you have a chance. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.